On this video, I'm going to be revisiting 3 local thankful villages. Thankful villages are where every person who went off to serve in the First World War returned home safely. There's 3 in my local area of Bath. I've visited all 3 before, but this year I'm revisiting each one I've been to before and leaving a red knitted poppy. This video is probably going to be 2, possibly 3 bike rides, so today is the first of those rides. I'm visiting the village of Woolley. At present, I'm at Swanswick. We're heading this way along the valley, then we're going to cut across, and then Woolley would be as that farmhouse is over there, just on the lower slopes of Lansdowne. Just leaving Swanswick now, heading towards Woolley. Just come into the left-hand turn where we cross over from this slope of the valley over to that slope of the valley, and it says there Woolley, half a mile. There you have it then, from one side of the valley down in that big dip, and believe me, that is quite hard work. Along here, now heading back towards Bath on the other side of the valley, but this is Woolley, just a collection of buildings, a church, a recreation area. We're going to go down to the end of this no through road. That's where the church is, but it's not where the slate plaque is. I'll explain when I get there. So about 20 or 30 yards down this no through road, you come to the church. Interestingly enough, there is actually a footpath which will take you back across to the other side of the valley. I'll just quickly show you that. And it says on the church, "Welcome, the church is open, sunrise to sunset." You come in past these wonderfully stained ornamental pews, and on either side of the church are these brass plaques which give a clue to the thankful nature of the village. And this one on the left hand side says, "To the glory of God and in the thankful remembrance of the safe return of all the men connected with this parish who by sea and land served their king and country in the Great War, 1914 to 1919. And on the right hand side, there's the equivalent but slightly modernised and modified for the Second World War. It says, "To the glory of God and in the thankful remembrance of the safe return of all the men and women of Woolley who by sea, land and air served their king and country in the Second World War, 1939 to 1945. So men and women in this case. They don't just mention the parish, they actually mention Woolley specifically. And of course, by the Second World War, there was an air force. So the 2 differences. But the slate plaque is not in here. And this was the first time I found it wasn't connected to the church directly. I actually had to ask a villager. Right outside the church is a Remembrance garden, which is where we're going now. And I had a quick look round on that first occasion and couldn't find it. And I was leaving the village and I just happened to ask some locals, did they know where the slate plaque was? And like many of the thankful villages, they knew about the thankful village status of where they lived. And they'd vaguely heard of the slate plaque. And they just happened to ask one of the local villagers. They said, "Oh, he'll know," and they just called him over, and of course he was able to direct me to where it was. And as soon as he mentioned it, he said, "Ah, yes, that's right, we remember now." So I'll show you where it is at Woolley. So virtually next door to the church is the church garden. Welcome to church garden. And there it is. And I bought my knitted poppy. And that's where the plaque is, over in that corner. The reason I missed it the first time I came here is because the grass was quite long and it was quite obscured. It's ever so easy to spot at the moment. There we are, Woolly, 1914 to 2014, a thankful village. Normally the plaques are screwed onto either walls, wood, stones, and there's a little bit of an edge behind that I can hook the stem of the poppy on. You just can't do that here, it's actually been cemented in. So I'm just going to leave it loose. Woolly, 1914 to 2014, a thankful village, the centenary slate plaque, and today's knitted woolen poppy. And as often happens, you come across a local story when you visit the locations, either by talking to people or by reading, or just purely by chance. And that's the case here. There's a tree here, and it says Marlene and Alan Toogood, Janet and Sam Priestman have planted this tree as a memorial for the 50 happy years they have lived and brought up their families in Woolly, October 2013. And on the opposite side of the garden, there's another wonderful story. Again, a chance discovery you would never read in a history book. This really resonates. This seat has a plaque and it says, "In loving memory of George Toby House, 1913 to 2008. Evacuated from Bermondsey, London in 1939 to Twinfield Farm, Woolly, where he lived and worked. His heart remained in this beautiful countryside." So a chance relocation due to the Second World War. I can really relate to that second story because it was a chance relocation that I'm even alive actually connected to the Second World War. My grandparents were born and raised in East Sussex. At the outbreak of the Second World War, they were living in Hastings on the East Sussex coast, and they were evacuated with their young daughter, my mum. There were 2 queues going on to coaches for this evacuation, and the story I was told was my grandmother, who's quite a talkative woman, just happened to go up and get a cup of tea from a WRVS woman, and they must have hit it off. And this woman said, "You ought to try and get on that other coach over there, it's going to a nicer place." And they found out afterwards the queue they were in were taken to the Radstock, which was a coal mining industrial town on the outskirts of Bath. They transferred on this advice from this friendly lady to the other queue, and it took them to Bath, and they just fell in love with Bath, and they never went back to East Sussex. They stayed in Bath. And of course, when my mother was brought up, she met my father there. So if it hadn't been for that evacuation due to the Second World War and that chance encounter with that WRVS lady, who knows, I might not even be here telling this story. So the plaque on that seat really resonated with me. Today I'm heading back to my home for lunch with my darling wife. We're having a Chinese takeaway tonight because it's our 22nd wedding anniversary. The second village will be a different day, so you'll probably see me in different kit. And I'll be heading out to Charwood, just south of Bath. I'll see you on that one. It's now a couple of days later, and I'm heading out south from my hometown of Bath to the thankful village of Charwood. It's a lovely little church. It's not open, but there is a porch you can get into. And I was hoping the plaque would be in there, but it wasn't. And this is the classic example. Try the church first would be my advice if you're seeking down these slate plaques. If not, look for something like a village hall, a village green, somewhere obvious, somewhere a point of the village where people might congregate, a reference point. Gosh, look at this, this is lovely. And that's exactly what I did. Carried on back along here, and a couple of 100 yards on the opposite side of the road is the old school, which is now a village hall, and that's where the slate plaque is. And lo and behold, just about 100 yards past that turning, on the opposite side of the road, is where I was talking about. You can see there's a post box, a village seat, a village notice board. That's the Charwood, a parish school, it says, engraved into the stone, 1834. And there's what looks like an old Charwood boundary sign. That really does look like an old boundary sign for the road. I love the fact it's carved into stonework. 1834 Charwood, parish school. You can clearly see it's been purposed now for the village hall. Wheelchair access, it's a little bit steep, mind, but it's there nevertheless. I'm just going to park myself here, get out the sun, and here's the plaque, the slate centenary plaque. Charwood, 1914 to 2014, a thankful village. Gosh, just like the other day, it looks like it's been cemented in actually. Might just get the string around now, I think I will actually. And I think that's what I'll do, I'll try and get it up in one of the top corners. My wife said to me the other day, how many more poppies do you want? Because the wool at the moment is on special offer, so she wanted to buy some now. So it made me do a head count. Up to now, I'm round about halfway. This is the first time I've ever done a head count of the 54 thankful villages that I always refer to. I've since realised there might be 57, but more about that on another video. Plus the fact there's a load that lay claim to being a thankful village, but so far research hasn't confirmed it. Several around here actually, but again, that's for another video. So she's ordered the wool, and I've already decided what I'm going to do for my cycle tour next summer. You've guessed it, more thankful villages. Hang around to the end of this video for that anyway. Getting back to the present quest then. As I've said, I've visited several thankful villages around my hometown and in the Somerset area, and one down in Dorset, but I didn't leave poppies there, so that's what I'm doing now. I'm revisiting all the ones I previously visited, didn't leave a poppy, revisiting them a second or possibly a third time, and I'm leaving poppies, hence today. Okay, this is the end of the second visit to a thankful village, revisiting and leaving a poppy. It's Charwood. I'll see you on another day for the third and final part of this video on the other side of the Mendips. It's now a few days later, and I'm just about to drop off the West Mendip limestone plateau of its southern edge down into the third of these thankful villages, Rodney Stoke. After dropping off steeply from the Mendips, I joined this B road that runs along the foot of the Mendips, and I'm going to turn left in the village down to St Leonard's Church. That's where the slate plaque is, down here a few hundred yards. Here we are then at St Leonard's Church, Rodney Stoke, on the corner of this road, heading down onto the Somerset levels. And just at the entrance to the church is the centenary slate plaque. Rodney Stoke, 1914 to 2014. There it is in place. Earlier in the video I said I'll tell you about my plans for my upcoming cycle tour next year. Thankful villages are where every person who went off to serve in the First World War returned home safely. If I zoom in, you can see Somerset has 9 thankful villages, more than any other county. So now I've revisited all of the thankful villages that I've been to originally when I didn't leave a poppy, and I have now left a poppy apart from one, and that's down in Dorset there. Probably going to try and get down there in the autumn as part of a youth hostel trip to Swanage. Well, first of all, this year really, I noticed looking at this map, there was a sort of corridor, can you see it, sort of heading from my hometown in Bath up through the Midlands, Cotswolds and the Midlands, up to Yorkshire. And that's what I did. I visited 16 thankful villages along that corridor. I did consider going further north, but by the time I got there and then into York, by the time I got there, the trip was 385 miles, and I felt that was adequate for a week. So I now want to go back up to the north of England, haven't been there for a few years, and visit all of these up there. This little cluster here, I've already mapped out a route. By getting the train to Leeds, I can start about there and ride up here, up the east side of the country, cut across the Pennines, south of Lakeland, and then what I would do is actually carry on down that coast, because I like that bit of coast. I want to explore it more. Fleetwood, Formby, Blackpool, and then head towards Manchester and get a train home. And by complete coincidence, the distance of that trip will be 385 miles. Perfect, really. And this map gives you an idea. Whereas this year was a corridor, next year will be a kind of rectangle. And I've provisionally done a route, so I'll show you that now as well. As I described, starting in Leeds, heading up north on the eastern side of the country, crossing the Pennines, that gap in between the Lake District, and then down the coast, finishing at Manchester. 385 miles. What a coincidence, almost exactly the same as this year. Look at the profile. There. Most of those spikes there right in the middle would be that cutting across the Pennines, and then it flattens out towards the end, that coastal section. So that's my plans for next year. Thankful villages, north of England. I've revisited 3 of my local thankful villages, and this time I've come equipped with a knitted poppy to leave on them. As I said, probably going to go down to the Dorset one and include that in a youth hostel trip, maybe in the autumn. Meantime, I'm going to look around here for a bit, and then I'm going to go to Winscombe, where I'm going to try and replicate a 1914 photograph. I saw this photograph on the internet recently and I recognised it straight away. It's troops marching down to Winscombe station. That station is now disused as part of a greenway, a cycleway, and I'm actually going to ride right through it on my way back to Bath. I'm going to try and find the spot where that photograph was taken and do a then and now. August 1914 and August 2023. Thanks very much for watching. I'll see you next time.